Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 343 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Eilon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and an author. Our third book is called From Letters to Leaders, Leveraging Your Fraternity or Sorority Experience to Land Your Dream Job. That is on Amazon now, so go and pick up that book today. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring college students together. Fun fact, growing up as a kid, I absolutely loved watching wrestling on TV. My favorites, Hulk Hogan, I would say The Ultimate Warrior was another one, Jake the Snake. All of these guys are just a part of my childhood that I'm never going to be able to remove. So much so that I actually have a full life-size stand-up video game machine in my house that is dedicated to WWF wrestling, and my kids love it too. So I get to kind of relive my childhood every time my kids start playing video games, and it's just a lot of fun to enjoy that together with them, with all of my childhood heroes, as if they were, running around professional wrestlers today. So it's pretty neat. Now, our next guest is going to have something to say about that. Dr. Chris Whaley is an international author, a Southern Baptist pastor, and a former professional wrestler, also an actor and a motivational speaker. Chris competed in Florida as a pro wrestler using the ring name The Saint. Whaley was trained by the Great Malenko. In the 1980s, Whaley wrestled professionally in Florida and the southeastern states for 10 years, competing with The Undertaker, the Freebirds, the Ultimate Warrior, Flamboyant Embry, Iceman, King Parsons, and many others. His last 3 years, he wrestled in Texas with Wild West Wrestling, WCCW, and some independent shows as well. After retiring from professional wrestling, he pastored 3 churches in Florida. His last 5 years, he's on staff at the First Baptist Church of Orlando. Drawing on real-life experiences from both wrestling and his career as a pastor, he wrote his first novel. It's called The Masked Saint. That novel turned into a movie in 2016 and won Best Picture at the 2015 International Christian Film Festival. Here to talk to us about all of that is Chris. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Michael, what a treat it is to be. I've been doing a lot of interviews, but I have looked forward to this one more than any of them.
Well, I hope you're not just saying that, but I appreciate the thought. I really do.
No, I love the college life, man, and this is just like a home run getting to be with you.
Hey, listen, I appreciate that. Our college students who are listening right now appreciate that. And they really can't wait to learn more about your life. I mean, man, what a life lived. You left nothing on the table. You made the most of every minute of your life. And I just really appreciate that. I mean, you didn't shy away from anything. And I love that. I absolutely love that. But, it didn't start out that way because you were actually bullied as a child. Talk to us a little bit about growing up and how you dealt with all of that.
Yeah, I was that sickly kid in and out of the hospital, constantly in and out of the hospital. In the 4th grade, I had polio, I had viral encephalitis. I was in the hospital for 3 months, had to learn how to walk all over again. And as that wimpy, sickly kid, I got bullied a lot. But I had a great mentor who's mentioned in my book, Miss Edna. And her husband was a guy who was a boxer, and so he helped me a lot. He taught me how to box and how to take care of myself. But if you're wrestling a guy that's a foot taller or boxing a guy that's a foot taller than you, it doesn't always work out. So there were some times I had to be innovative. And what you do when you have a big bully in school is you find somebody who's bigger than him, and then you pay them to be your bodyguard. So there were those times when I fought, those times when I had to pay a bodyguard, but you just get innovative and you try to find a way to deal with it. And that's what I did as a kid.
That's great. I'm going to have to remember that one. Find somebody on the payroll that's bigger than the bully.
There you go. There you go. It works every time.
I bet it does.
Yeah.
And you also decided on Palm Beach Atlantic University for your undergraduate experience. I mean, I'm sure you could have gone to multiple places. Why was Palm Beach Atlantic your choice?
Well, I met a young lady when I was 16 years old. I didn't, my parents, neither of my parents had any education. My dad had a third grade education. My mom had a seventh grade education. They're great people, but they were raised in South Alabama. Education was not pushed. And so it was not pushed in my home either. And in high school, I majored in lunch. I mean, I just, I didn't apply myself, but I met this young lady when I was 16. She's brilliant. She, we both grew up in poverty, but she said, I don't want to grow up in poverty. I don't want to live in poverty. And so she said, I'm going to get an education. I'm going to be a high school math teacher. And so she was going down to Palm Beach Atlantic, which at that time was just a little Christian school. Today, it is an unbelievable university. It's one of the top schools in the United States now. But in those days, it was a little bitty thing. But I followed her. Why would you not like West Palm Beach, man? 2 miles from the beach, you got the ocean. And I don't know if you've seen that movie, The Jesus Revolution, but it's about the hippies, And when I was in college, it was the hippies, man. Everybody had long hair. I memorized George Carlin's hair point. You remember that? I'm aware some stare at my hair. In fact, to be fair, some really just stare at my hair, but I don't care because they're not aware nor are they debonair. In fact, they're just square. Some see hair down to there, say beware, and run off in a care. But I say no fair. Be fair with your hair. Show what you care. Wear it to there or to there or to there if you dare. Hair can be rare. Fred Astaire got no hair, nor does the chocolate day clear. Where's the hair on a pier? Nowhere, mon frere. My wife bought some hair at a fair to use as a spare. Did I care? Au contraire. Now that I shared some hair, I think I'll return to my lair and use Nair. Do you care? Hey, man, I had long hair, and I love Palm Beach Atlantic because it was near the ocean, and everybody had long hair. And it was just a great school, man. It was a great Christian school, and I learned so much there. And that's where I found out about true love was at that school.
So you're a smart man. You went to school near the beach. That's great. I went to school at the University of Buffalo in Buffalo, New York. And I was dreaming about where you were going to college, you see?
Oh, my goodness. I didn't see snow. I didn't see snow until I was married. I was 21 years old when I saw snow for the very first time.
Yeah, it was just every day for me, and it was brutal. It was brutal. So you actually knew what you were doing. That was very smart on your behalf. Now,
yeah.
You knew. So you were a professional wrestler under the name The Saint for 10 years. Talk to our audience a little bit about how you even got into professional wrestling.
Well, when I was in a hospital a lot, you get your days and your nights mixed up. And so I had a TV in the room. It was a black and white TV, but late at night, professional wrestling was on, and that's what I watched. And I became enamored with it, and I loved it. We had greats like Eddie Graham and Red Bastien and the Great Malenko, Johnny Valentine, and I watched them when I was growing up. And I just dreamed of one day, even as that sickly kid, I dreamed one day of becoming a professional wrestler. My wife and I graduated from college. We moved back to Central Florida. I was in the best shape of my life. I mean, my doctor, he's the one who got me going to the gym. I really enjoyed it, love work. I still love working out. And my wife was teaching at her alma mater, teaching high school math. And one day I came in and she's grading papers, and I picked up the Tampa Tribune, and there it was. It said wanted professional wrestlers. Wow. So I got so excited. I took it over to my wife and I showed it to her, and she was grading papers. She just kind of rolled her eyes, went back to grading papers. But man, I packed a bag. I drove over to Tampa. I walked into the gym, and there was the Great Malenko. I mean, this guy has trained more big names in wrestling than you can imagine. His son, Dean Malenko, who's very involved with AEW right now, and Jody's going to be honored at the Cauliflower Alley in September. Just great teacher. I was hooked the moment I walked in. I was hooked on it. And 6 months later, I had my first match and never looked back.
What a story. That's just unbelievable. I mean, I grew up with it too, but I certainly didn't have the size to compete with those guys. Man, that must have been a lot of fun for you.
It was a hoot, man. Yeah, it really was.
So once and for all, I think you need to just put this debate to bed. Is professional wrestling fake and choreographed?
I get to speak a lot, and I'll always, Bubba will come up to me at the end after I speak. Bubba will come up and say, that wrestling's all fake, ain't it, man? And I say, think about it logically. How do you fake a body slam?
Yeah.
How do you fake getting hit with a steel chair? I have a nice little crease in my forehead.
Oh,
How do you fake getting thrown out of a ring onto a concrete floor? Uh, I go through my injuries. I have a crushed ankle. I had 5 knee surgeries, dislocated hips, broke pelvis. I broke all my ribs, my sternum, both collarbones. I've had both shoulders surgically repaired, neck injuries, back injuries, broke my nose so many times I can't even breathe out of it. I'm deafened this year from getting hit, punched in the ear, and I had over 100 concussions. So if it was fake, somebody forgot to tell me. Now then, it's not fake, but it is predetermined. You know who's going to win, who's going to lose. That's not up to me. That's up to the promoter. The promoter is the guy that sets, the WWE, man, they took it to the next level. They have a storyline, and everything. So it's not fake. It's predetermined. Now, in my day, there was no choreographing. A lot of times I didn't even know who I was going to work against until I got to the arena. And I'd show up and the promoter would say, hey, you're working against him. It's like, okay, great. That was it. So I don't know about this choreograph. Now I hear today, that they do that stuff. I can't imagine how they can remember all of that because we just played it as we got into the ring. So that's the way it was.
wow, that is really cool. And what was it like competing with wrestlers like the Undertaker and the Ultimate Warrior? Those guys are my heroes.
Man, I tell you, it was 1988 in Dallas, and it was a Friday night. And when I wrestled on Friday night, my wife and my little girls would come, and then after I wrestled, we'd do Friday night fun night with them. And on this particular night, I was at the beginning of the card. I wrestled. I'm back in the dressing room taking my boots off, and the promoter came in and said, the guy that was going to work against Mark Calloway was not going to make it, and he needed somebody to wrestle twice. And I said, I'll do it. I got the promoter to go, the referee. I said, go out, find my wife and girls and tell them not to leave because I'm going to wrestle again. So I got dressed and he came back. He said, I found your wife and kids and they're going to stay. And I said, you didn't tell them who I'm working against, did you? He said, no. So I get in the ring, and of course I'm, have to get in there first because he's the star. Right. The lights went down, that hideous music came on, and I found my wife and girls in the crowd. And when he walked in, both my little girls started crying. And then my wife's eyes got that big, and then she picked her purse up, and she's going crazy through her purse. And anyway, we had a great match. We went about 20 minutes. I mean, he was so awesome to work with. And then we were driving back to Fort Worth that night, and I looked in the rearview mirror, and there was my little girls are sound asleep. And then my wife, I looked over. I said, "Hey, right before the match, I saw you grabbing your purse and going crazy. What were you doing?" She said, "Oh, I was looking for the checkbook to make sure you'd paid the insurance." That's so true story.
That
true
was the
story.
match against the Undertaker.
Yeah, man, I tell you, she was kind of freaked out about that. But hey, you know what? I knew that kid was going to be a star because he wasn't even working as the Undertaker then. I think he was working as, Mean Mark or something like that. I can't even remember what it was. But the guy's 6'8", right? Weighed 315 pounds. And when he did a full body press, had me up like that. That's a long way up there, brother. And then he let me go. Boom! I mean, it was an unbelievable match, but
it was awesome. Huge guy. I mean, that guy's 6'8". Are you kidding me? I mean, that guy is gigantic.
Yeah, the Ultimate Warrior, he was a real stiffy. He wasn't fun to work with at all. But hey, I made it through it.
You made it through. So after retiring from all this fun as a professional wrestler, then all of a sudden you decide you're going to pastor 3 churches in Florida. So what drew you into the church as a pastor?
Well, Southern Baptists, we are an autonomous congregation. In other words, it means they are self-governing. So we don't have a hierarchy like the Catholics do or like the Methodists do. Southern Baptists called their own pastors. And so when I'm in seminary, I'm waiting to be called by a church, and that church got my resume, and they called me and they flew me down. And so that's, that's the way it works. And I was at that church. And then, my second church called me and said, hey, we want you to come be our pastor. And so I went there. And then the third church, which was here in the Orlando area. So they're the ones that call you. But the first church was the one where all the mass saints started. It started there at that church. Had a guy that was abusing his wife. And, she showed up with sunglasses on. And it just really infuriated me. Any man that will hit a woman is a dirtbag. And so when I found out, I said, I want to go visit him. And so I did visit him, and I asked him, let's see how you do against somebody who can fight back. And we danced in the parking lot, and it was awesome, man. I mean, I got to relieve my stress with this guy. And that was the beginning of it. And then I had episode after episode where I handled things as a professional wrestling more than as a pastor.
Wow, that is just unbelievable. I mean, if you look at the movie, The Masked Saint, that was released in 2016, and of course, based on really the same book that was written by you. And in the movie, the pastor witnesses all kinds of rampant problems in the community, and then he decides to moonlight as a masked vigilante fighting for the injustice. How much of that movie, I mean, you described, this parking lot scene with this guy who was abusing his wife, but how much of that movie was accurate in real life?
The movie is accurate. They changed some things. Movies do that. If you read my book, every chapter is based upon a real life story that happened in my life. But for the movie, they changed things. For instance, Miss Edna, she's from my childhood, but in the movie, they bring her up to real time. And then the thing that happened on the basketball court actually happened on a softball field, but it was like 28 degrees and the wind chill was like 10 degrees and the wind was blowing. And so, when they made that movie in Canada, they had to move some things inside and change the story a little bit. But, it's pretty accurate. But the movie makes me out to be a bad preacher. I mean, and I was not a bad preacher. I was a great preacher. Yeah. So they did that for humor. And my choir, the choir in the movie is the choir from hell. I mean, they are terrible. But I never had a choir that was that bad. So anyway, they changed some things for humor's sake and all. But it was a great movie, and they did a lot of great things, but they had to change some things because it was a movie.
Yeah, well, I guess that makes sense. To take some liberties there and change things around. And as a pastor, I am sure that you have been around all kinds of tragedy. I mean, there's nobody that hears more of that as a pastor from their congregation. So how can our listeners, how can they help family and friends when tragedy inevitably does strike?
Right. Michael, as a pastor, I have done over 800 funerals in my lifetime. Every kind of funeral you can imagine. And I've struggled also with that very early in the ministry. And I came across something that helped me tremendously. I was reading the book of Job, and in the second chapter at the very end, after Job lost everything, lost his family, lost everything, he's sick, he's got sores. There's 3 friends that came to visit him. And even though they blew it big time later, they did something right. It says when they got to him and they saw how his countenance was and they saw how sad he was, it says that they sat on the ground with him for 7 days and never said a word. And when I looked at that, I said, that's what you call the ministry of presence. So if you've got somebody that's dealing with tragedy or dealing with, all those bad things that happen, the greatest thing you can do is just to be there. You don't have to say anything because they're not going to remember what you say. What they will remember is, hey, you were there when I was hurting. You were there when I needed you. And that's one of the greatest things that people can do. Just be there and let them know. When I deal with tragedy in my church, even now, I do a lot of funerals now. I tell them, hey, listen, I'm sorry, love you. Whatever I can do to help, I'll do it. And that's all you got to say. And you make sure they get food, you make sure they get people to help them as they need it for things around the house. But you know, for college guys and girls, let me tell you something. One of the greatest things, the greatest helps for me, and I didn't grow up, you know, as a Christian, but when I went to that college, my wife took me to that church there. That's where my life changed. But they had a group of young people our age, they call them small groups. And if you're in college away from home, you find a good church that's got a life group that's got kids in it, because that's your family away from home, and they will help you tremendously in the good times and in the bad times. And I know what people are saying. I found a church and it was sorry. Hey, listen, I found a grocery store that sucked, but I found another one that didn't. You know, so if you find a church that's not good, just find another one, because there's a lot of them out there. And those life groups, they are an anchor that'll help you during your time when you're away from your family at school.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I remember going off to the University at Buffalo. There's 30,000 students at the University of Buffalo. I just felt like a number. I felt lost. And I think, you have to find those groups that are smaller, manageable, that help you to connect and build those friendships, especially when, I was driving, whatever it was, 8 hours away from home. Coming home for the weekends wasn't an option.
Yeah,
And so,
right,
you got to find some family, you got to find support. This is the first
right.
time you're off on your own. And if you don't have that support, college can be a lonely place.
Yeah, it really, really can. And you gotta have that anchor that helps you during those times, and they will definitely help you. You know,
Yeah.
this church that I'm a part of now, First Baptist Orlando, it has over 20,000 members. The sanctuary holds more people than the hometown that I grew up in. I mean, it holds 4,700 people.
Yeah.
And what makes this huge church so small is the small groups,
Yeah.
that are in it.
Yeah.
People, they get to know people, they get to be a part of a family. So do it. It'll help you tremendously.
Yeah, great advice. And I appreciate the stuff on the tragedy too. I think, a lot of times we get wrapped up in, well, what should I say to this person who's experiencing tragedy? We never know what to say, what's the right thing to say. But just like you said, just show up. Forget
Yeah.
about what to say. Just show
Just
up.
be it.
That
Just
is
be it.
everything. Yeah, that's really,
Yeah.
really good. Good
Yeah.
advice.
It is.
Now, I'm sure you've seen your fair share of depression and mental health issues. Right now, it's running rampant on college campuses. And I'm wondering if a lot of that has to do with the pandemic and the isolation that they were under for so long. And the various pressures. I mean, there's tragedy all around us. I mean, just watch the news for 10 minutes and I
Right.
guarantee
Right.
you're going to see it. So, what is your advice for these college students who are struggling right now with depression and anxiety?
Okay. One of the things, turn the stinking TV off and don't watch that stuff, because it's not going to change. They're not looking for good news. They're looking for bad news. They're looking for the stuff that's going to make news. So just turn that crap off and don't watch it. But I have dealt with depression my whole adult life. There's two kinds of depression. There is a circumstantial depression, circumstances, the loss of a loved one, a divorce, splitting your family up, circumstantial that cause, but then there's a chemical depression, which is what I have. Your brain is not producing some things that are needed. So with me, one of the big things that's helped, you got to find a great counselor who's not only a great counselor, but a great friend. Have a great counselor. And then there's some wonderful supplements. I mean, for the longest time, I took drugs. I took Zoloft. I took all kinds of stuff that would help me. But, I don't like taking those things. And so there's some great supplements that are available. One of them is it's DLPA, DLPA. It's a supplement. I take one in the morning, I take one in the evening. That helps me tremendously. There's another thing called ashwagandha, which is for anxiety. You got a big test coming up. You get these, they're even gummies, but it's a supplement. You just take an ashwagandha before you go in there for that test, and it just gives you a calming, gets rid of that anxiety. So those two things can really, really be a great help to you. Look for the supplements. There are some, holistic doctors that can help you with that. And that counselor is a big, big thing that can help you during those difficult times. And then you always got to have a close friend that's going to be there that you can, run things off. You got a best friend, Michael?
Of course I do. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I got a lot of best friends.
Yeah. So me too. I mean, I've got a
Yeah.
best friend. I've known him since third grade,
Yeah.
and I can say anything to him. He's not going to judge me.
Sure.
And
Yeah,
you got
that's
to
really
have one of
important.
those people in your life.
Yeah, I like that idea too about finding a counselor. I wish that if I went back in time, I wish that I found a counselor earlier in life. It wasn't until I was an adult that I actually started speaking to a counselor. And I think I missed out because there was a lot of opportunities to talk to somebody,
Yeah.
a professional, to
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
work through a lot of those issues. And, the college students who are listening right now, they pay a lot of money in college tuition. And there's a counseling office right there on campus that they can go for free and
Yeah.
go and speak to somebody. And you might have to wait, a little
Yeah.
while. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
downside, but you can make an appointment and go and speak to somebody. And I would highly encourage the students who are listening right now, if they're going through difficult times, take your
Right.
advice. Find a counselor at the counseling center on your college campus. Won't cost you a dime,
Right. Right.
and talk to somebody and work through some of
Right.
those issues. Right?
And if you don't have the money, which I don't know a lot of college kids who've got money, but if
Yeah.
you don't have the money, search around at some of the, some of the churches around there and ask and see if you can talk to the pastor.
Yeah.
Because, like for me, I minored in behavioral science. And there's a lot of pastors that, they minor in those things because they deal with people so much. So, you can find a pastor that won't charge you.
Yeah.
And sometimes and if he doesn't help you, find another one,
Yeah.
don't quit, just keep going.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Yeah, we got to remember our religious-based organizations that are also very close to college campuses, and there's a pastor to talk to, and I'm
Right.
sure they would love that opportunity to talk to you
Right.
about what you're going through. But yeah, it's we just have to remember all these resources are around us, and until
Yeah.
somebody tells us, we're like, oh, of course, like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's right in front of
Yeah.
me all this time, but I never took advantage of it, and I'm
Right.
guilty of it too. I mean, I'm telling you straight up. I went through some difficult times in college, and I wish that I had taken advantage of it. So I hope
Yeah.
somebody listening right now that it helps them and pushes them to go and try that out and see if it works. And just like you said, I mean, counselors just like pastors. I mean, if you talk to one counselor and you don't like the experience, don't give up. Find somebody else. It's
Somebody
just like
else.
relationships.
Right.
Like
Right.
sometimes you gel and everything works perfectly right away, and other times you're like, oh no, this is not going to work, and that's
Yeah.
okay. Just go out and find
Yeah.
another one.
There you go. Absolutely. Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
you're in Orlando, Florida, and we do love good food here at the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. And something tells me that you enjoy good food too. So where
I
should I
do.
go in order to get a great meal in Orlando?
Well, you got the places where you go like for an anniversary,
Yeah,
right? Like in just another month, I'm going to celebrate 48 years with my bride.
amazing.
And I can tell you that we'll be going to a place called Fishbones. I mean, if you want a great steak, if you want great seafood, whatever, Fishbones, man, you got to have an appointment like 2 weeks in advance to get in there because it's so popular.
Yeah,
But I love Mexican food. I mean, when I was in Texas, I got addicted to Tex-Mex.
sure.
And here in the Orlando area, we have a great Mexican restaurant. It's called Senor Tequila. And, my wife and I go there at least once a week because I just love Mexican food. But, there's some other places that I love, like the Cheesecake Factory, man. I love their shepherd pie too. So we take advantage because Orlando has everything.
Yeah.
And but those are my favorites. Fishbone, Seniors, Cheesecake Factory. And of course, we got the Cracker Barrel. I mean, if you're running crazy, you go to the Cracker Barrel and get breakfast at 6 o'clock at night. That's pretty awesome. I love that.
That is pretty awesome. Cracker Barrel has always been very good to me. So I agree with you there. And those are some great spots. So I will
Oh
definitely
boy.
check that out next time I get to
Ooh.
Orlando. I'm going to do the rounds and then I'll let you know what I thought.
All right, man. All right. Yeah.
All right. So if our listeners, if they want to buy your book or they want to bring you in to speak on their college campus about your life experiences, where should they go to connect with you?
You can go to my website, which is www.themasked, and that's MASKED, themasksaint.com. You can get in touch with me there, but I'll give you 2 email addresses.
Sure.
The first one is The Masked Saint, MASKED, Masked Saint 59 at Gmail. The Masked Saint 59 at Gmail. Or you can, my church email is Chris Whaley at firstorlando.com. Either one of those. But you can get me on that, or you can get me on LinkedIn, Facebook. Most people connect with me on Facebook. I get all these messages every week from people who read the book or saw them. The movie is on Prime right now. Nice. It's on Prime, so you can watch it for free on Prime. Yeah. And but the book is the best thing. The book, because it's got each one of those chapters that have real life things that happened to me. And can I tell you this too? I hated reading. Even now, I hate doing it, but I have to read so many books, and I do that. But it's just like every now and then, I just want to read a book for me that's not hard. It doesn't have the big words that I can just read and enjoy. And The Masked Saint is that book. I actually had in mind young guys in high school, because do you realize that when a young man graduates from high school, 88% never read another book?
Oh no, that's terrible.
But if you take The Masked Saint, take it in the bathroom, 3 trips, you got it read. It's real easy. No problem. No problem.
This is a 3 bathroom trip book.
There you go. You got it done, man.
Yeah, that's great. That is great. Listen, I'm a lifelong learner. I'm in a doctorate program right now, trying to, finish up my doctorate and write a dissertation. So I agree with you. I think we need to continue reading. Reading might not necessarily be my first joy. There's other things that I like to do. I like to write. I like to speak, certainly. I like to go to the gym and work out. And so other things take my time. But I think, reading, just for you every once in a while is a good thing too. So yeah. Hopefully they mix it up.
I love speaking. That's like a home run when I get invited to speak, because afterwards, that's the best part. Afterwards, you get to talk to these people that came to hear you speak, and you get to, hear their stories, you get to take pictures and all that kind of stuff. So I love speaking and look forward to every opportunity that I get. And connect with me on Facebook. Send me a message. I guarantee you, if you contact me, I will answer you. It might take a week, but I will answer every one of you. I promise.
That's fantastic. Well, I hope we get to meet up sometime soon. I'd love to take a picture with you. Anybody who wrestled with the Undertaker, man, oh man. I mean, my hat is off to you. Yeah. All the respect in the world.
Hey, Michael, listen, I just want to tell you, thank you for the opportunity. This is really the one I've been looking forward to. You are an awesome guy, and I hope and pray that your show just explodes, because there's a lot of young lives out there that need something like this, and it could be one of those anchors that help them. And you keep it up, man, and I'm proud of you.
I hope so. Thank you very much. I really appreciate those kinds of words today. That's kind of why I put the show together. It's just kind of creating a treasure trove of resources for college students to listen to that are going to last forever. And it's stuff that I didn't have, when I was a college student, and I wish I did. I wish I could listen in on conversations like this to realize that, hey, there are people to talk to get help, and just all the stuff that college students go through. I want them to have the resources they need to be successful. And if I do that, and then we have one person who's successful and goes out, raises a family, and does something really cool, then that makes me feel good. That's why you do it.
And you that are listening, you need to do something. You need to share this with other people and make this go viral, because there's a lot of people like you that need to hear it. They don't know about it. So let your friends know. Let your friends know about the Fraternity Foodie podcast. I love that, man. Hey, can I tell you one other thing before?
Sure.
I never stop dreaming. I never stop overcoming obstacles. Last year, November the 17th, at the age of 68, I got back into the ring one more time. I wrestled on November the 17th, 2022. I got back in the ring. It was a tag team match, and it was like, oh man, I can't tell you how awesome it was to get back in the ring one more time. Had my first body slam in 30 years, and it was awesome. And they streamed it. Over 4,000 people watched it on streaming. So it was amazing to be able to get back and do that. I'm still young at heart, man.
I love your energy, and we can all feel it just listening to you. I think it's fantastic. You got a chance to relive that and do that one more time
Yeah, man,
because,
it was
man,
awesome.
what a trip.
It was. It was.
All right. Well, listen, I enjoyed it. Thank you so much, Chris, for being on the show. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely, man. God bless you.
God bless. And to our audience, if you enjoyed this conversation with Chris, take his advice. Make sure you like it and share it on social media with all your friends. And we look forward to seeing you on another episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.